call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you all for coming this evening. Will the clerk please take the attendance?
All council members are present, Mr. Mayor.
Item 3 is the approval of the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Tildenburn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran, Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
All right, next item on the agenda is open forum. Is there any member from the public who wishes to address the council on an item not listed on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Consent agenda. Item 5 is the approval of the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, is there any council have any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran, Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tildenburn.
Aye.
Okay, we have a couple presentations. The first one is proclamation of a day to celebrate the cultures of our community. Former Mayor Tim Reed, CEO of the Brookings Economic Development Corporation, along with Kirsten Linke and Henan Getchu of Ethiopia, will represent SDSU and Banusha Mandi from Iran, and Dori Fesh from Germany will represent the Brookings Multicultural Center in accepting this proclamation.
The BEDC is really excited and happy to be part. They're joining up with the international affairs from SDSU and the Brookings Multicultural Center for this event that's going to be held on August 17th, as the mayor talked about in his proclamation. And it's a free, so all community, that's not just for the international community that they're representing. They want to get as many people from the community to be part of this, to help welcome the international faculty and students, plus their families, and it's really important that we bring their families here into the community. And so again, it is on August 17th at Good Roots Farm and Gardens from 7 to 9 p.m. And so we hope everybody in the community can come out and join us for some free ice cream. Thank you.
Okay, we still have this thing on? Yeah. All right, we have another presentation, a special achievement in geographical information system. At the ESRI conference in July, Aaron Carl accepted the Special Achievement in GIS Award on behalf of the City of Brookings and Brookings Municipal Utilities. Evan Henningsen and Marshall Bainan from the Brookings Municipal Utilities and Aaron Carl from the City of Brookings are the primary GIS staff working behind the scenes to help staff and members on the community gain a better geospatial understanding. You guys want to come up and show your award and give us a little bit of a rundown of what GIS is all about? A lot of people probably don't know.
I'm Mike Struck, the Community Development Director at the city. Aaron Carl, he's with the city. And then we got Evan and Marshall, both with BMU. So give you a little background on this. In 2020, the city implemented geographic information systems for the first time in the history of the city. These are the three individuals that really put together the data sets, the backbone of the operations. We have a public interfacing side through our website where you can see some of the maps that are available, but that doesn't tell the full story of what goes on behind the scenes. And so our ESRI rep nominated these individuals for the work that they've done in creating the partnerships between the city and BMU, and then really how they have implemented it with the data sets that we as staff on a daily basis utilize to help in the decision-making process. It's the data, it's the analytics, it tells a spatial story of what's happening in Brookings and how we can coordinate better. And so congratulations to you individuals. Great work on building that data set for the public. You can see some of the maps that are available through the city's GIS portal page. Go on to the city, and then under the community and visitors section, you can get to the city maps. But as us internally can tell you, what you see publicly is just a little blimp of what they've actually done behind the scenes. And so we utilize the detailed information on a daily basis as we're looking at development, as we're putting together information to bring forward to council in their decision-making process. So congratulations, fellas, and if you want to say anything, go ahead.
Nope, don't want to say anything? All right, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is second quarter CFO's report. Chief Financial Officer Eric Rangel will present.
Good evening, council members. Has the second quarter financial update for the city of Brookings. We'll start with the revenue collected from January to June. So for anybody who's new left, and that's how our revenues received. Our first column are the revenues and by revenue type of tax. First penny, second penny, third penny, bid tax, and then our property tax. The second column is the full budget. The third column is the prorated budget. Just a good benchmark is as of now we should be at 50% of what we budgeted for. The fourth column is the actuals, how much we've received. And then the fifth column is the difference of favorable or unfavorable. And then the last one is the percentage of favorability or unfavorability. So if we look at the total row, which is the bolded line item, we can see that for 2022, our total budget is about $15.7 million. Our prorated budget as of the end of June should be around 7.5, and we've received $9 million. That makes a favorable variance of $1.5 million, which represents around 20% over budget. And we can see on the chart on the right side how the middle column is how much we've received. To the right, we see what was in the budget. And then to the left side, it's a good also stat to compare against last year. So we're 15.4% compared to last year at the end of June. Going back to the left table, if we had the property tax received, we are at around $1.6 million surplus or 17.1% over budget. It is important to note that the growth is across all the tax revenue categories that we show in the table. So if we dive a little bit of by industry, we see an increase across all industries, where we see manufacturing, retail, trade, and the services sectors grow a lot compared to last year. One number that jumps at us is the manufacturing growth. If you can see the table, third column, the year over year, you see 97.5% growth. But that is just because if you see the previous 2 years, we had a major decrease, material decrease in that one. So overall, we're growing in every sector. And if we need additional information on this performance, you can access the city's website going through the link below. All right, so moving on at general fund. Just as a reminder, the general fund is what funds most of the city operations, excluding the enterprise funds. We'll start with the table on the left. Similar structure, you have our departments, then the budgeted amount, the prorated amount, our actuals, our favorability or unfavorability against actuals. Percentage use, again, this should be around 50% with give and take. And then we had our revenue. How are we doing against our revenue projections at this point of time? And then the last column would be the net, which is adding all the revenues and expenses variances to see how our financial position at the end. So the story is also good. Our total general fund expenses is around 48.4% of total budget. That's about a $1.8 million surplus compared to our budget. If we exclude the use of reserves, which is your last row on the table, the story is also good. We're about at 43% of expense, which is around a $1.1 million surplus. A large part of these variance is mostly due to staff vacancies and also timing of expenses. However, we do see some departments a little bit over where they should be right now. Most of it is just timing of expenses, but our staff remains watching our utility and fuel costs that are around 20% higher than what was planned, but we have some tools to offset as well. For now, I think we remain confident that we will end up the year at a good spot. Also to note, if you will look at the revenues, we're about $968,000 higher than projected. A big chunk of it is $350,000 payment that we received for our insurance premium, just as a down payment for our storm event expenses that will incur throughout the next following month for the May 12th storm. Moving on to the other city funds, as a reminder, we're looking at the CIP and the other funds. The CIP is our capital improvement where we fund most of our big projects. So same structure. Just as a whole, we are about 14.8% used, which is about a $539,000 surplus compared to last year. The pie chart on your right shows what we've spent mostly of the CIP. As you can see, most of it has gone through bond payments, the library upgrades, park and rec improvements, and the first payment for the fire department tower. Just as a reminder, the bulk of this spend for the CIP happens during the summer, so I expect this spend to increase within the next couple months as well. So overall, the city is about a 33.5% use of expense, which represents right now about a $5 million surplus. A lot of this is timing. It is also important to note that these numbers do not have the Swiftville Center second quarter expenses, but after speaking with their management, they expect to end the year right at budget this year. Next is an update on the City Council priority project list. As a reminder, these projects are the ones that are funded with the unassigned reserves from the general fund. And the difference between the previous one presented is that we've officially closed 2021, so we start off with the audited final fund balance, unassigned fund balance for the general fund. So that $12.5 million on your left side, it's sort of like the balance of what we had at the end of 2021. We take out our operational reserves, which are around $3.5 million. And it does include $1.5 million in ARPA fund usage. So that makes your $12.5 million there. The second table on the left side represents the approved projects that City Council had actually taken action on them. So $1.1 million is for the facility improvements, $1.5 million for the HVAC at the Swiftville Center, and then we have the training tower for $590,000. With that, these projects add up to be $3.19 million. So if we subtract the $12.5 million of available balance minus that gives us $9.3 million to fund additional projects. So next is in line below are the primary projects. These have not been officially approved, but these are the first in line. When we have $7.9 million for the Public Safety Center, totaling $8.5 million total of what we have reserved for that one, and the indoor rec facility for $850. If we do the math, our balance after funding these projects would be $522,000, which is on your top right side. The next projects in line are our secondary projects, which unfortunately we cannot afford at this moment. If we add them up, it would be $2.7 million, and that would bring our reserves to a deficit, our unassigned reserves to a deficit. And lastly, a little bit of an economic update. The update doesn't look as good as our performance for the first 2 quarters of the year. The conference board is forecasting a mild recession that will start occurring at the end of 22 and will likely happen at, over 2023 as well. This is mainly caused by persistent inflation, which, and as a consequence, the Federal Reserve moves of rising interest rates, as long as supply chain constraints for the most part. So as things to highlight, we're forecasting on the table here, first row, at the end of 2022, the growth is going to be around 1.7%, and for GDP, and then a mild growth in 2023 of 0.5%. It is also important to note the outlook for inflation. That is the last row on the table. The bottom row, that they're forecasting to end up the year at 5.9% inflation, which is very high. And then 2023, they're forecasting about 3%. Locally, we're also experiencing inflation and these factors. Just as to give you an idea, in June, our annual, I guess our final inflation on an annual basis was around 9.5%, which is really high. And we're also experiencing the labor market constraints, supply chain constraints, and perhaps another COVID wave. So we remain cautious, even though we had strong revenue. We remain cautious and conservative on our expenses for the rest of the year. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
Mr. Wendell?
Thank you, Mayor. Eric, on slide 5, on the chart on the very right-hand side, I'm looking at the, I think it's the one right after this. It's slide. I'm looking at the bond payments slice of that pie. I know we've done some refinancing work or considered refinancing in the last couple of years. Is that number lower annually now than it was a couple of years ago, or was that refinancing more like back-end savings?
We've refinanced what we've been able to, and I believe that we refinanced that 2014 bond. So it is lower. However, we have, for example, a 2019 bond and the PAC commitments that we cannot refinance the 2019 until 2024. So I guess to answer your question, is the best number that we can have as of right now, but we're looking to refinancing opportunities whenever we get to do that.
Thank you.
Council member.
I have a question on the primary projects, the Public Safety Center and the indoor recreational facility. So what is the target amount that, I'm thinking of this as sort of a piggy bank where we're putting this money aside for these 2 projects, but do you have any idea on what the target amounts are?
Address
Are you
that.
talking specifically for the public safety or for all of them?
For the 2, for the public safety and the rec facility.
So initially we thought $8.5–9 million would be enough. Working with the consultant, the engineer, and the construction manager at risk, we know that that's not going to be near enough. You could probably plan on doubling that and still being a little bit short for the police facility. For the rec facility, that all just depends on how much we want to utilize that facility. The intention and idea there is that we won't be able to afford an indoor facility for quite some time because of bonding purposes or limitations on operations. But what we could do is change that indoor facility over there by the Larson, make some small investments, But I know Dusty is interested in also going after grants and talking to private donors throughout the community as well to invest into that facility. Right now, Dusty is working with, I believe, Banner and Associates and other firms to get good estimates to bring back to council in the near future. What I could tell you with the police facility on the horizon, we're probably going to try to pull wherever we can, however we can to help fund that project. We should know an exact or a closer dollar amount in October, I believe.
And if I can add, the indoor rec facility number that you see here, it's taking into account some grants. So this is just like the city's share. Definitely more than this.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Eric on this? Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no contracts and change orders. Item 8, ordinances first readings. Item 8A, introduction and first reading on ordinance 22-029, an ordinance authorizing budget amendment number 7 to the 2022 budget. Second reading will be August 23rd. Ashley Wrench is going to present this item.
Mayor and members of the council, this is the first reading of ordinance 22-029, authorizing amendment number 7 to the 2022 budget. This ordinance has 5 parts. Part 1 is a transfer of funds to cover expenditures related to the recent employee appreciation lunch for the May 12th storm recovery efforts, the upcoming salary survey, and the recent personnel changes in the city clerk and community development departments. Contingency transfers are budget neutral as they decrease the contingency account budget and redistribute it to those other accounts. Part 2 transfers reserves dedicated for economic development from the CIP fund to the general fund for expenditures related to the economic development master plan and the marketplace property. These expenditures were previously budgeted, and this amendment balances the transfer of reserves between the CIP fund and the general fund. Part 3 increases our insurance budget in the IT department to increase our cybersecurity insurance coverage. And we also received a refund of a portion of our workers' comp premium, which offsets that expenditure. Part 4 recognizes our insurance reimbursement net of the deductible for the city property damaged in the May 12th storm and the estimated expenditures associated with the storm. We're expecting a majority of that additional $318,000 in expenditures to be recovered through FEMA funding. And finally, Part 5 is basically a cleanup of our special assessments, TIF, and capital projects budgets to ensure that they're in line with the expected revenues and expenditures for the rest of the year. Part A adds $121,000 to the special assessments budget to account for additional assessments work that is planned for 2022, as we delayed the work in 2021 due to higher than expected bids. The cost of this work will be paid upfront by an advance from the CIP fund, which we will bring to the council at the next meeting in conjunction with the second reading of this ordinance. The advance will be paid back to the CIP fund as the special assessment revenue is received. Part B recognizes the expected TIF 1 revenues and annual state revolving fund loan payment that is related to the first phase of the TIF 1 project. These were known revenues and expenditures that were just not a part of the original 2022 budget ordinance. And then earlier this year, Resolution 22-034 authorized a loan from the general fund to the TIF 1 capital project fund for the final phase of TIF 1 improvements, and Part C recognizes this loan in terms of the budget. Part D recognizes the final pay request for the South Main and 34th Avenue project, which was for streets and infrastructure around the Dakota Prairie Elementary School. And then Part E, in budgeting for the 20th Street interchange project, we had initially only budgeted for the expenditures, and so this part accounts for the expected reimbursements from Brookings County, the DOT, and private donors. And finally, Part F recognizes the grant funds awarded for the related construction costs for the Brookings Food Pantry project. The second reading of this ordinance will be on the 23rd, and with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Public. Seeing none. Do council members have any questions or comments? Thank you, Ashley. Item 9, public hearings and second readings. Item 9A, public hearing and action on ordinance 22-027, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Brookings and pertaining to residents R3 apartment district for the purpose of administration of the zoning ordinance. Mike Struck, our community development director, will present this.
Council, the ordinance amendment before you tonight has three components to it, amending the R3 zoning district. The first major issue is eliminating the per unit density. In the R3 district, we have a unit, you have to have a minimum of 1,815 square feet of land area for that. We found, especially in current trends, when we're seeing more efficiencies in one-bedroom apartments, it's maybe not quite necessary anymore. We've actually had a couple of projects that we've had to put on hold or turn away because they could meet all of the requirements from the setbacks, the landscaping, the parking requirements, but to get that unit count that they wanted, they couldn't meet that per unit density. So we're recommending that we eliminate that. The next part of this is to increase the maximum height that's allowed in the R3 district. It's currently set at 45 feet. This is another issue that we've seen concerns with in construction industry, with wanting to go with a little bit taller interior ceiling heights, that they were seeking variances to that 45-foot maximum height to get to the number of stories that they were interested in. And then the third component of it is just clarifying some language. You can see on the overhead, it's the crossed out language on the left side of the screen. Requirements. And when we were going through this process, we implemented what's called the buffer yards a couple years ago. And that language and this language is conflicting. And so we felt that it was more appropriate that when you start to get to a certain height, that the buffer yards are more relevant. And so the buffer yard requires that when an R3 residential district, if that building is going to exceed 30 feet in height, that the buffer yard, which is essentially a separation distance from property line, increases. And so currently right now, it says that if you get to 3 or more stories in height, your side yard setback increases to 10 feet, while the buffer yard actually has a little bit greater separation distance. So it helps protect some of those existing properties that would be adjacent to an R3 project that might be coming forward. This does come as a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, staff, and the Development Review Team also support this zoning amendment, and I'd stand for any questions you may have.
So moved.
Does council have any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Avery, Collins,
Aye.
Duran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tildenburn. Aye. Wendell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 9B, public hearing and action on ordinance 22-028, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Brookings and pertaining to residents R-3A apartment mobile homes manufactured housing district for the purpose of administration of the zoning ordinance. Mike Struck will also present this item.
This is a repeat of the previous explanation. It's just another zoning district, the R3A district. All the same provisions apply, eliminating the per unit density, increasing the maximum height to 60 feet, and then if your structure is over 30 feet in height, the buffer yard separation distance would prevail versus increasing the side yard setback from 7 feet to 10 feet. So if you want further explanation, I can certainly provide it, but it's exactly the same as the previous item. I'd stand for any questions.
Thanks, Mike. Item, is there any public comment? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Entertain a motion to approve.
Move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Does the council have any questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tildenburn. Aye. Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Item 10A, action on resolution 22-062, a resolution adopting the special assessment policy. Our city engineer, Charlie Richter, will review this item for us.
Good evening, Council. I'm here to request adoption of Resolution 22-62, a special assessment policy that would establish the financial terms for special assessments for the city. State statute details the procedure for to establish the financial terms for these assessments. Based on feedback we received at the May study session and subsequent feedback, the financial terms proposed are following. The term of financing for sidewalks and alleys would be 5 years, and roadways and utility work would be 10 years. This is consistent to special assessments that have been performed in the past. The annual interest rate charged shall be calculated based on the 10-year fixed rate established by the FHL Bank of Chicago plus 3.5%. This is lower than the 10% the city has used in the past, as the city wanted to be more equitable with the interest rate that would be linked to a standard. When calculated out, it would be approximately 7%. Third, consistent to special assessments in the past, any assessment under $300 would be assessed in one payment. These terms would be included in this resolution of necessity to inform residents of what was being proposed. I open it for comment.
Duran. Aye. Niemeyer. Specker.
Aye.
Tildenburn. Aye. Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Mayor, City Council members, City Council Plan Act, ARPA, distribution for the community at the July 19th work session. Based on the Council's discussion, staff recommends a resolution that assists multiple partners throughout the community and addresses issues identified within the multiple surveys. If approved, approximately $2.2 million will be distributed based on the following: Ivy Center expansion for mental health at $1.2 million, child care facility and administration or coordinator at $580,000 through the Brookings Economic Development Corporation, Habitat for Humanity to provide affordable housing at $110,000, and ICAP to provide affordable housing as well as rental assistance and weatherization for folks here in Brookings at $110,000, and then finally $200,000 for a city workforce housing project that'll provide anywhere from 18 to 20 workforce housing single-family owned units at a cost of $185,000 to $225,000. If approved, all requirements and amounts would be included within an administrative agreement based on the project outlines. Provide or stand for any questions council might have.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Paul, I was wondering, the other 2 point, has that already been saved for the police department, or will we have another one of these to go?
No, that would be distributed internally. I believe $1.5 million would be put aside for the police department. Once again, we'll receive that payment here in September, and so $1.5 million will be put towards the police department. The remainder, $700,000, is broken out. I think right around $250,000, $300,000. It's already been spent on prior COVID-related initiatives and operations within the city, and then we're putting aside about $200,000 for future expenses, and I want to say about $100,000 for grant administration, working with, I'm sure, Baker Tilly, or the firm I always get incorrect.
Thank you, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to make a decision about how to distribute these dollars. I think our goal from the beginning was to engaged with the community to understand where the highest level of priority was, and we had outstanding response from community members through surveys that told us that childcare and behavioral/mental health and housing were the top 3 priorities across all demographics. And so it's a phenomenal opportunity to work with community partners that were well positioned to take these dollars, in many cases, match them multiple times over and do really good work. And so I'm just happy that we were well positioned to survey the community, to get pretty consistent responses around where those priorities were, and to have partners in the community that were in a position to actually accept the dollars and have meaningful projects that will have high impact at this time. It's a pretty unique opportunity, and I actually think it's a unique way to invest the ARPA dollars relative to what other mid-sized communities in our state were able to do with the dollars. And I think it just demonstrates how much partnership there is in Brookings to tackle big issues.
I want to just take community partners that brought forward the projects at our study session, and I want to thank the city staff for the several hours that have gone into preparing all of the materials that we've reviewed, and I want to thank my fellow council members for a great discussion at our study session. I think that the discussion that we had around all of these projects was really productive, and I think the decision that we've come to in the chart that's in front of us now is a really impactful way to spend a one-time chunk of change that we are fortunate to be able to receive as a community. And I'm really excited to see the long-term impacts that this one-time expense is going to have on this community for years to come. And so thank you for everybody, and thank you to the community members who responded to the surveys as well. Without that input, it would have been very difficult for us as a council to kind of move forward and make any decisions in terms of how we spend these dollars. And so just kind of community-wide, all of the input and hard work that's gone into helping us decide how to allocate these funds, I just want to thank everyone for all of the work that's been done.
To add on to Nick's and Holly's points is the urgency of this funding and the urgent action that council and the community took, and the partners as well, that when we talked about how we wanted to use these dollars in the community and what projects we wanted to use, we wanted to make a impact soon because that's what the community was asking for with these needs, that these are critical and urgent needs. So I really appreciate that that was a factor considered by council and city staff as well as the community projects as well.
Answer questions? I'd like to also say that I appreciate the community being involved in this whole thing. It's not always an easy job to distribute funds. It's always helpful when we get cooperation and involvement from the community. Our survey was answered well. I think we're going the direction that the community want us to do. With that being said, please call the roll.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tiltonburn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 11, time to review upcoming council meeting agenda items. Our August 23rd meeting. As of right now, we have no presentations or reports, no first readings. We do have some contracts for bid awards for library window replacement, road salt. I hate to say that. Winter's coming. Snow removal equipment, sidewalk concrete maintenance, and Harvey Dunn Street. What's the Harvey Dunn Street, Paul?
Harvey Dunn Street is some stormwater improvements that would be tied to the food and to the west towards Sex Tower and into 6 Mile Creek.
All right. Thank you. Budget amendments number 7 that we talked about this evening. And then always welcome city progress report from the assistant city manager. With that being said, is there anyone that has something to add? Councilmember Tilton Burn.
For the next meeting, or if there are any comments that can be made tonight, but just any comments on the road construction that is going on. I know that we talk about that at several of our council meetings, but I do think that some announcements that have taken place, I think yet today, kind of spurred some more discussion around some of the road closures that are happening. So I'm wondering if we have any input that we can either give tonight or at our next meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember. I was actually going to bring up road construction as an item tonight, so thank you for leading me into that. First thing I'd like to make aware to the public is that tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, we've been advertising this, that there will be a meeting here in the City Council chambers to discuss the detour and the construction that's going to occur on 20th and 22nd Avenue. It's going to be a large construction project, mainly for water lines that are going to be implemented in that street, and it's going to close down the intersection for roughly 45 days. So anyone who's interested in that project, please stop by. You'll hear from the project leaders of that program. Once again, it'll take 45 days. There will be detour routes throughout the community, but you can still get through it localized into neighborhoods and what have you. So stop by 5 o'clock for that. Right now, what I can tell you is there's a lot of information on our website on the closures that have been occurring. I know that I was just informed that 8th and Main should be open right around Friday. There was a little bit of a hiccup on some of our timing with our contractors as far as getting local providers here to work on streetlights. One of the things that we've been really struggling with, and I think everyone has here across the nation, is workforce as well as product. And we're really having to work with our local construction folks just as they're battling a lot of these issues. And we try to make as much information public as possible. And so the chip seal is completely done. We're now picking up those chip seals over the next few days, this next few weeks. So hopefully we'll have that completed here before too long. The mill and overlay on 8th Street should be done here by the end of the week as well. Jake, is that correct?
The mill and overlay on A Street South will be completed by the end of the week. A Street North, or A Street Regular, will be done by next Wednesday.
Thank you. And we should have 8th Street and Main open by the end of this week as well, assuming that we can get that electrician in to work on the lights. Once again, that's one of the hiccups that we're having. But people can always go to our website to find out more information. GIS has done a phenomenal job in updating the road construction. Jake has some great ideas for next year where we can color code the various things that are going on throughout the community and always looking for ways to improve. So thank you for that opportunity.
Any other questions or comments from council? That being said, we are going to go into executive session now. I do not think, well, I know that we're not going to make any actions after that. We'll probably just adjourn the meeting right after we get out of executive session. Enter an executive session as per SDCL 1-25-2.3 for purposes of consulting with legal counsel or reviewing communications from legal counsel about proposed pending litigation or contractual matters. Also discussing marketing or pricing strategies by a board or commission of a business owned by the state or its political subdivisions when public discussion may be harmful to the competitive position of this business. With that being stated, entertain a motion to enter an executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. We are in executive session.